War Council chamber erupted in chaos as Admiral Kira Vance slammed her fist on the holographic table, scattering star charts into digital fragments. The Draxian Empire had just executed 3 human diplomats on live broadcast, their bodies dumped into space like refuse. "Enough talking," Kira said, her voice cutting through the noise. "We hit them now." Captain Derek Holland stepped forward from the shadows of the observation deck, his combat armor still scorched from yesterday's skirmish at the Helix station. "Admiral, the fleet's ready. Every ship, every pilot. They're all waiting for your word." Kira's jaw tightened. She'd spent 15 years climbing the ranks, fighting wars humans had no business winning. The Draxians were older, stronger, their technology centuries ahead. Their ships moved like liquid metal through space. Their weapons turned planets into ash. Every species in the galaxy bowed to them, every species except humanity. "The Draxian homeworld is protected by 7 defense rings," General Nathan Cross warned, his scarred face illuminated by tactical displays. "We've never breached more than 2. Then today we breach all 7, Kira replied. The room fell silent. Officers exchanged glances. This wasn't strategy. This was suicide. "We have one advantage they don't expect," Derek said, pulling up a file marked classified. "Intelligence reports confirm Princess Lyra will be attending the coronation ceremony in 6 hours. She's the Emperor's only heir." Kira studied the image of the Draxian princess, tall, elegant, her skin shimmering with bioluminescent patterns that marked royalty. But something in the data made Kira pause. A footnote, a reference to an incident 20 years ago on a border colony. "Send the coordinates to all strike teams," Kira ordered. "We're going in fast and loud. I want every human ship in range converging on the capital. No retreat, no surrender." "Admiral," Nathan's voice carried weight, "if we fail, Earth is next." "They'll come for our homeworld." Kira met his gaze without flinching. "Then we don't fail." The fleet launched within the hour. 300 human vessels against an empire that controlled half the known galaxy. The odds were impossible. The mission was madness. But humans had never cared much for odds. As her flagship, the Valiant, punched through hyperspace, Kira pulled up that footnote again. 20 years ago, a human rescue team had extracted survivors from a Draxian research station under attack by raiders. Among the survivors was a child, a Draxian child with bioluminescent skin, the same patterns now worn by Princess Liara. Kyra's communicator buzzed. Derek's face appeared, grim and ready, dropping out of hyperspace in 30 seconds. "All ships report combat ready." "Good," Kira said. "Let's remind the galaxy why you never corner a human." The Valiant shuddered as reality snapped back into focus, and before them hung the Draxian homeworld, beautiful and deadly, surrounded by rings of death. The war had just begun. Feel name. The alien princess Trembled. The human before her had saved her as a child. .txt. The first defense ring opened fire before the human fleet even finished materializing. Energy beams the size of skyscrapers carved through space, vaporizing 2 destroyers instantly. Alarms screamed across every bridge as the Draxian automated defense platforms locked onto their targets. "Evasive maneuvers," Kira commanded, gripping her command chair as the Valiant rolled hard to port. "All fighters launch now." The hangar bays of 300 ships burst open like hives, releasing thousands of human pilots into the black. They swarmed forward in formations the Draxians had never seen, weaving between energy blasts with reckless precision. Lieutenant Amy Grant led Alpha Squadron straight into the teeth of the first ring. Her fighters screamed as she pushed the engines past their rated limits, the hull rattling so hard her teeth ached. "Target the power nodes," she shouted over the comm. Hit them fast. Break through faster. Her wingman, Carlos Webb, stayed tight on her flank as they dove toward a massive weapons platform. They're tracking us, Grant. I count 40 locked missiles. Then let's give them something to chase. Amy yanked her stick hard, spiraling through a gap barely wider than her fighter. The missiles followed, slamming into each other in a chain of explosions that lit up the void. Carlos whooped as they broke through, launching torpedoes into the platform's exposed reactor core. The explosion tore a hole in the first defense ring wide enough for the fleet to punch through. Ring 1 breached, Derek reported from the tactical station. Casualty count at 18 ships lost. Kira's expression never changed. Press forward. Target ring 2. But the Draxians were already adapting. The second ring didn't fire randomly. It waited, calculating, learning from the first engagement. When the human fleet entered range, the defensive fire came in coordinated waves that caught entire squadrons in kill boxes. "We're losing too many," Nathan warned as another cluster of ships vanished from the tactical display. Kira activated fleet-wide communications. "All ships, this is Admiral Vance. I know what I'm asking. I know what we're facing. But those diplomats they killed, they were our people, our friends, our family. The Draxians think fear will make us kneel. They're wrong. Show them what humans do when you threaten our own." The response was immediate. Ships that had been falling back suddenly surged forward with renewed aggression. Captain Lisa Monroe of the heavy cruiser Thunderhead rammed her vessel straight through a Draxian battlecruiser's shields, firing point-blank into its hull before breaking away in a spray of debris. "Thunderhead is critically damaged," her transmission crackled through. "But that battlecruiser won't be bothering anyone else." Thunderhead out. The ship listed away, trailing atmosphere and fire, but it had cleared a path. Ring 2 shattered under the human onslaught. Derek's hands flew across his console. "Admiral, we're detecting massive energy buildups in rings 3 through 7. They're coordinating a simultaneous strike. How long?" 2 minutes. Kira's mind raced. 2 minutes to close the distance, or 2 minutes to die. She pulled up the intelligence report again, focusing on the palace coordinates where Princess Liara would be attending the coronation. The ceremony was a symbol of Draxian power, broadcast across the Empire to show their dominance. An idea formed, dangerous and desperate. "Derek, can we get a surgical strike team to those coordinates?" He looked at her like she'd lost her mind. "Through 5 defense rings in 2 minutes? Admiral, that's possible. If we commit everything to one vector, concentrated assault, narrow corridor, maximum speed." Nathan stepped closer, his voice low. "You're talking about sacrificing most of the fleet to get a handful of people to the surface. I'm talking about ending this war before it consumes everything." Kira shot back. "The princess is their future. If we can reach her, if we can use her as leverage, or as a hostage," Nathan finished grimly. Kira shook her head. "Not a hostage. Something else. Something they won't expect." She thought of that footnote again, of a human team saving a Draxian child when they had no reason to, no tactical advantage to gain. "Trust me." Derek's fingers hovered over the execution command. "Who's going planet-side?" "I am," Kira said. "With a small team. You'll command the fleet, Derek. Keep them alive as long as you can." "Admiral, you can't." "That's an order, Captain." The Valiant's engines roared as the entire human fleet aligned into a spear formation. Every ship pouring maximum power into forward thrust. They drove into rings 3, 4, and 5 like a bullet through armor. Ships dying by the dozens, but never stopping, never slowing. And at the tip of that spear, a single-drop pod launched toward the planet below, carrying Admiral Kira Vance and 3 Marines toward a coronation that would change everything. Asterisk field name. The alien princess Trembled the human before her had saved her as a child. .txt, the drop pod screamed through the atmosphere like a meteor, its hull glowing white hot as Draxian anti-aircraft fire chased it down. Inside, Kira and her 3 Marines, Sergeant Jake Morrison, Corporal Lynn Davis, and Private First Class Tony Rogers, were strapped in so tight they could barely breathe. 30 seconds to impact, the pod's computer announced in a calm voice that felt obscene given the circumstances. Impact is a generous word for a crash, Tony muttered, checking his rifle for the 5th time. Jake slammed his fist against Tony's helmet. Stay focused. We hit the ground, we move fast, we find the princess before their security turns us into vapor. The pod slammed into the palace gardens with enough force to crater the ornamental stone. The hatch blew open and Kira rolled out, weapon raised, scanning for threats. The coronation ceremony was happening in the Grand Hall 200 meters away, visible through massive crystal archways that rose like frozen waterfalls. Move, Kira ordered. They sprinted across manicured pathways lined with bioluminescent flora that pulsed in alarm at their presence. Draxian guards materialized from alcoves, their armor shimmering with energy shields. Lynn dropped to one knee and fired, her armor-piercing rounds punching through shields that had stopped human weapons for decades. New ammunition specs just came through last week, she said, grinning as guards scattered. R&D finally figured out the frequency. They reached the hall's entrance just as the massive doors began to seal. Jake threw a breaching charge that blasted them inward, and the team rushed through into chaos. The coronation chamber was enormous, filled with hundreds of Draxian nobility, dressed in flowing garments that shifted colors like oil on water. At the center of it all, on a platform of suspended crystal, stood Princess Liara. She was more striking in person than any hologram could capture. Her skin glowed with intricate patterns that seemed to tell stories in light. Her eyes a deep violet that widened in shock as 4 humans in combat armor burst into her sacred ceremony. Guards rushed forward, but Kira raised her weapon toward the ceiling and fired a single shot. The crack echoed through the hall like thunder. "Everyone stops, or the next shot goes through your princess," Kira shouted. It was a bluff. She had no intention of harming Liara, but the Draxians didn't know that. The hall froze. Every guard, every noble, every attendant went absolutely still. Princess Liara stood on her platform, her expression unreadable, her hands raised in a gesture that might have been surrender or might have been something else entirely. "You dare!" a voice boomed from the shadows behind the throne. Emperor Vorgath himself stepped into view, his form massive and ancient, his skin marked with patterns so complex they seemed to move on their own. "You dare interrupt the coronation of my daughter with your primitive violence?" "Your ships killed our people," Kira said, her weapon still raised but her voice steady. "You executed diplomats under a flag of truce. So yeah, we dare." Vorgath's laugh was like grinding stone. "And now you will die for your insolence." "Guards, kill them all!" "Wait." Princess Liara's voice cut through the tension like a blade. She stepped forward, descending from her platform with grace that made her seem to float. "I will speak with them first. Liara, this is not—" "I said I will speak with them, father." Her tone carried an authority that surprised even the Emperor. She approached Kira directly, stopping just meters away, close enough that Kira could see the patterns on her skin shift and swirl with emotion. And then Princess Liara did something that made the entire hall gasp in shock. She looked directly at Kira and spoke in perfect English. "I know you." Kira's blood turned to ice. "What? 20 years ago? A border colony under attack? I was 7 years old." Liara's eyes searched Kira's face. "You were younger then, a lieutenant. You carried me out of the burning research station while raiders tore everything apart. You shielded me with your own body when the ceiling collapsed. The memories came rushing back. Kira had been part of a rescue team, pulling survivors from a station that had nothing to do with human interests. She remembered a terrified child with glowing skin, remembered wrapping her in a thermal blanket, remembered promising her everything would be okay. She'd never known the child was royalty, just another life to save. You gave me this, Liara continued, reaching beneath her ceremonial robes and pulling out a small object on a chain, a human military patch, worn and faded, but unmistakable. You said it would protect me, that humans never leave anyone behind. The hall erupted in confused murmurs. Emperor Vorgath stared at his daughter in disbelief. That's why, Liara said, her voice trembling now. I have spent 20 years arguing against this war. Why I have fought my father's advisors at every turn. Why I have tried to find another path. She looked at Kira with something that might have been hope or might have been desperation. And now you stand here in my coronation chamber with weapons drawn, and I must ask you, Lieutenant Kira Vance, who is now Admiral Kira Vance, have you come to kill me, or have you come to save me again? Kira slowly lowered her weapon. I came to end a war before it destroys both our peoples. Then, perhaps, Liara said, turning to face her father and the assembled nobility, we should talk. Outside, the human fleet was dying by the dozens, buying time with blood. Inside, a princess who remembered kindness stood between two species and the extinction one of them faced. The galaxy held its breath. C5 name. The alien princess Trembled. The human before her had saved her as a child. Txt. Emperor Vorgath's roar shook the crystal pillars. You would negotiate with these animals, these insects who dare threaten our home world. These insects, Lyra shot back, saved your daughter's life when they had no reason to. When it benefited them, nothing. She turned to address the assembled nobles, her voice ringing clear. For 20 years I have studied humanity. I have watched them fight wars they cannot win. I have seen them charge into certain death for strangers. They do not surrender. They do not break. And, Father, they are currently tearing through our defense rings with a fleet 1/10 our size. A noble in the front row scoffed. Impossible. Our defenses are impenetrable. Jake's comm unit crackled. Derek's voice came through, strained and urgent. Admiral, we've breached Ring 6. Casualties at 70%. We can't hold much longer. Kira didn't take her eyes off Vorgath as she responded.
How long can you give me?
10 minutes. Maybe 15 if we commit the reserves. Do it. Vance out. She looked at the Emperor. Your Majesty, in 15 minutes my fleet will either be destroyed or they'll be knocking on your palace doors. Either way, thousands more die. Or you can listen to what your daughter is trying to tell you. Vorgath's patterns flared with anger, but beneath it, Kira saw something else. Calculation. The Emperor hadn't ruled an empire for 3 centuries by being a fool. Speak then, human. Give me one reason I should not incinerate your fleet and be done with this irritation. Kira stepped forward, her team flanking her but weapons lowered. Because we're not your enemy. We never were. Your real threat is the Kasith Dominion in the outer sectors. They've been waiting for you to weaken yourselves against us so they can strike your eastern border. The hall went silent. A different noble, this one wearing military insignia, leaned forward. You lie! The Kasith signed a non-aggression pact, which they're violating right now, Kira said. My intelligence division intercepted their battle plans 3 weeks ago. They're massing a fleet at the Vornus Gap. 40,000 ships. Lynn pulled up a data chip and tossed it to the nearest guard. Everything's on there. Troop movements, communication intercepts, supply line analysis. We were going to share it through diplomatic channels until you executed our ambassadors. The guard handed the chip to a court official who plugged it into a holographic reader. Data spilled into the air between them. Star charts, fleet manifests, encrypted Kasith communications that had been painstakingly decoded. The military noble's patterns shifted to a sickly green. By the ancestors, this is legitimate. They're planning to strike in 6 weeks. Borgath stared at the data, his massive form utterly still. Why would you give us this? Why not let the Kasith destroy us and claim the ruins for yourselves? Because that's not who we are, Kira said simply. Humanity fights when we have to. We hit hard when you push us. But we'd rather have allies than corpses. Tony's comm crackled. Admiral, Ring 7 just went active. They're charging some kind of weapon we've never seen before. Energy signature is off the charts. Kira's heart hammered, but she kept her voice level. How long? 5 minutes to full charge. If that thing fires, it'll vaporize everything in orbit. Lyra grabbed her father's arm. Father, please, stop this. They came here not to destroy, but to communicate. They fought through our defenses, not for conquest, but for conversation. Does that not prove something about their character? It proves they are dangerous, Borgath growled. It proves they are desperate, Liara corrected. Just as we would be if our diplomats were murdered. Just as you would be if someone threatened our home. She moved to stand between Kira and her father. I am your heir. In 1 hour I would have been crowned Empress in Waiting. I claim my right to speak in this matter. Borgath's eyes narrowed. You risk much, daughter. I risk everything, father, as they have. Lyra turned to face the assembled court. I propose a challenge, an old tradition from the founding days of our empire. Trial by champion, the nobles murmured in surprise. The military commander stepped forward. Your Highness, that tradition has not been invoked in over 1,000 years. Then it is overdue for revival, Liara said. Admiral Vance, would your people agree to this? Single combat between chosen champions. If your fighter wins, we cease hostilities immediately and hear your terms for peace. If our fighter wins, your fleet surrenders and you face judgment for your intrusion. Kira glanced at Jake, who gave a slight nod. It was insane. It was primitive. It was also the only chance they had. Agreed. But I choose who fights for humanity. And I choose our champion, Borgath said, a cruel smile crossing his features. Commander Dracus, step forward. A Draxian warrior emerged from the shadows, easily 8 feet tall, his body encased in ceremonial armor that had seen 100 battles. Scars crisscrossed his exposed skin, each one glowing faintly with old wounds that had never fully healed. He carried a weapon that looked like a sword and a spear had been merged by someone who understood only violence. Jake leaned close to Kira. Admiral, let me take this. I've been training in close combat for 15 years, but Kira was looking at Lyra, seeing the way the princess watched Dracus with something that wasn't quite fear, but close to it, seeing the way her patterns had gone pale. No, Kira said quietly. I know who needs to fight this battle. She turned to the Emperor. I accept your champion, and I choose mine. She pointed directly at Princess Liara. Your daughter fights for humanity. The hall exploded in outrage. Nobles shouted. Guards raised weapons. Borgath himself looked ready to order everyone's immediate execution. But Liara stood frozen, staring at Kira with wide eyes. And then, slowly, impossibly, she smiled. I accept, the princess said. Feel, name, see. The alien princess Trembled. The human before her had saved her as a child. .txt. The coronation hall transformed into an arena within minutes. Nobles scrambled for viewing positions while guards cleared a circular space 50 meters wide. Above them, through the transparent crystal dome, the flashes of ongoing battle painted the sky with deadly light. Borgat descended from his throne, his voice a low thunder. Liara, you cannot be serious. You have never fought in true combat. Dracus has killed warriors twice your size. Then I will learn quickly, Liara said, removing her ceremonial robes to reveal form-fitting armor beneath. Elegant but functional. Or have you forgotten that I spent 10 years training with the Royal Guard, despite your objections? Training is not war. No, father. But neither is cowering behind tradition while both our peoples bleed. She stepped into the circle, her skin patterns shifting to deep crimson, a color Kira had learned meant determination. Dracus entered from the opposite side, rolling his massive shoulders. Princess, I have no wish to harm you. Yield now and spare yourself the pain.
I have no wish to harm you either, Commander, Lyra replied.
But I will if I must. Jake pulled Kira aside, his voice urgent. Admiral, what are you doing? She's going to get killed, and then we've accomplished nothing except giving them an excuse to execute us all. Look at her stance, Kira said quietly. Look at how she's moving. Lara circled Dracus with fluid grace, her feet barely seeming to touch the ground. Every movement was precise, economical. This wasn't someone playing at combat. This was someone who had genuinely trained. The gong sounded. Dracus charged immediately, his blade sweeping in a horizontal arc meant to end the fight in seconds. Lyra dropped beneath it, rolled forward, and came up inside his guard. Her fist struck his ribs with a crack that echoed through the hall. Dracus staggered, surprised. Lyra didn't press the advantage. She retreated, reassessing, her patterns flickering through colors too fast to read. First blood to the princess, the officiator announced. The nobles fell silent. This wasn't supposed to happen. Dracus's expression hardened. He came at her again, this time with measured strikes, testing her defenses. Lyra parried with her forearms, the armor there reinforced, redirecting his blade rather than blocking it directly. She was faster than him, but he was stronger, and they both knew it. Why do you do this? Dracus demanded between strikes. Why fight for humans? Because someone must show that we are better than endless war. Liara gasped, ducking a thrust that would have skewered her. Because I remember what kindness looks like. She spun, her leg sweeping toward his knee. Dracus jumped back, then lunged. His blade caught her shoulder, tearing through armor and drawing luminescent blood that glowed as it fell. Liara cried out but didn't fall. Instead, she grabbed his weapon arm, used his own momentum to throw him off balance, and drove her knee into his midsection. Dracus went down hard. The hall erupted in chaos. Half the nobles were cheering. The other half looked horrified. Kira's calm buzzed. Derek's voice was ragged. Admiral, Ring 7's weapon is at 90% charge. Whatever you're doing down there, do it faster. How's the fleet? 40 ships left. We're out of options, Tony swore under his breath. Lynn gripped her rifle tighter. Jake just watched the fight, his jaw clenched. In the arena, Dracus rose slowly. Blood leaked from a cut above his eye. You are skilled, Princess. More than I knew, but skill alone will not save you. He activated something on his armor, and energy shields flared to life around him, crackling with power. The fight had just gotten exponentially harder. Liara looked at the shields, then at Kira. Their eyes met across the arena. And in that moment, Kira understood what Liara was really asking: trust. After 20 years, the princess was asking if that human who had saved her could be trusted one more time. Kira gave the slightest nod. Liara's patterns shifted to brilliant white. She charged Dracus head-on, which was suicide against energy shields. Dracus braced for impact, ready to let the shields fry her. But at the last second, Liara dropped and slid beneath him, her hand snatching something from her belt, a small object on a chain, the human military patch Kira had given her 2 decades ago. She jammed it into the shield generator on Dracus's back. The shields exploded, not violently, but they collapsed, feedback surging through Dracus's armor. He convulsed, dropping his weapon, smoke rising from the circuitry. Lyre swept his legs and put him on his back. She picked up his blade and held it to his throat, her chest heaving, blood running down her arm. "Yield!" she commanded. Dracus stared up at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he smiled. "I yield, Your Highness." "Well fought." The arena fell absolutely silent. Then one noble began to clap. Then another. Then the entire hall erupted in applause that shook the crystal walls. Vorgath stood frozen on his throne, watching his daughter stand victorious, watching her hold out her hand to help Dracus to his feet with honor and respect. Kira's comm crackled. "Admiral, the Ring 7 weapon just powered down. All Draxian forces are standing down." "What the hell did you do?" Kira smiled. "We let them remember who they really are." Princess Liara walked toward Kira, still bleeding, still breathless, but wearing that same human military patch around her neck, like a medal of honor. "I believe," she said loud enough for the entire court to hear, "we have a peace treaty to negotiate." Emperor Vorgath descended from his throne, his patterns swirling with emotions too complex to name. He looked at Kira, at her team, at the data still floating in holographic displays showing the Kasith threat. "Very well, Admiral Vance," he said. "Let us talk. Feel name? The alien princess Trembled, the human before her had saved her as a child. .txt.